First beer we got on the flight is our Firehouse Blonde Ale. It's kind of our flagship that we open with. So just a nice, easy drinking, introductory blonde ale. Get people in the door. I mean, as you know, we're in a bit of a rural area, so we want to draw people in, get them trying different things. And so it's kind of where we started, was in the firehouse being after the old fire hall that we're in. So
very fitting name. Cheers. Cheers. Thank you for having us. It's really good. A lot of like cereal grains.
Yeah, we use a lot of two-row and a lot of just neutral, slightly citrusy hops to complement it. So
I think the blonde is like the best way to get people in, like you were saying, you know? That's like what everyone says. Like people that aren't crazy about beer, they're like, I really like blondes, you know? Like that's often what people say. So I guess it's a good one to start with, which is pretty cool.
We had a lot of people in the beginning when we were building the space kept asking for lagers. Are you gonna make a lager? Are you gonna make a lager? So without, you know, compromising what we wanted to do, the blonde seemed like a good introductory one for them, so.
For sure. So you started brewing in your, like home brewing in your backyard, right?
yes.
When did the dream of like opening your own brewery take shape, like start to become a reality?
Well, I started homebrewing with the full intention to open a brewery. So I was building a business plan and developing recipes kind of at the same time, all while I was working at a chemical company. So my job, I always tell everybody, my job was to brew, but just chemicals in very large tanks. So different product. Processes, I was a process operator, so you can just learn the process and go from there. So
I've actually, my old job was a process operator. Now I work in a chemistry lab. So that's exactly how I relate to people as well. Yeah, it's the same thing. I actually saw you guys though, like you posted a picture of your pilot batch system, right? And then we're just in the back looking at the tanks you have now. Is it surreal, like when you look back on that time, to think about like how far you've come and that you've actually made it a reality?
I think at times, a lot of times we're so busy, we don't really stop to kind of reflect on things and how they've progressed. There's the odd moment where you kind of look at it and you go, holy geez, I actually built a brewery and people come here and enjoy it. So so it's kind of surreal sometimes, but I think oftentimes there's not a whole lot of time to sit and reflect. We're always kind of just moving and going on to the next thing and trying different batches and changing things up. So
that is interesting though, that you said you started with the intention of homebrewing, you know, like a lot of people just start for fun and then they're like, hey, I could actually do this. That's cool that you started with like, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, it was kind of an aha moment. We were sitting enjoying some craft beer in our garage, and I was mentioning, so Shannon, she runs her own business, she's an entrepreneur, and I was mentioning how I wasn't really particularly happy with where I was in my life. I mean, it's kind of that golden handcuffs situation. You pay enough that you'll never go anywhere. And so it was kind of an aha moment where I said, hey, I think I should brew beer. And the next day we drove down to the homebrew shop, which unfortunately has since closed in St. Catharines. It was a great homebrew shop, and bought everything I needed to do all grains. So a lot of people will dibble dabble in homebrewing and get into like extract brewing, and then wonder why their beer doesn't really taste great, and that's
it tastes very similar every batch with extract.
Yeah, you get almost like a homebrew twang to it when you're doing a lot of extract batches and that have dextrose in it. So I wanted to go all grains, so I started with some bagged, made-up recipes that you can buy, and then did a few of those just to get the process down and make sure that I could make good beer, and then started developing my own recipes. And so some of these are, the brown when we get there is one of my homebrew recipes that I piloted a lot. So yeah.
That's really cool. So you guys are the only brewery in Jarvis or Haldimand County, right?
In all of Haldimand County, yeah. So we saw whole. We live in Haldimand. We've been out this way for about 6 years now, and we did a lot of travel. So Hamilton, Niagara, Brantford, London, every time we wanted to go experience craft beer. So we looked around, saw no one else was doing it, and it's a big hole. Haldimand's huge. So we knew we wanted a brewery in Haldimand County. Jarvis kind of found us though. So we had kind of looked at Dunnville, Cayuga, Caledonia would have been a great spot because it's growing so quickly. we just couldn't find the right building, and we happened to be driving through Jarvis at the exact same time that we got a call from someone at the county office letting us know that someone wanted to rent out a space in Jarvis. So like, if that's not, you know, calling you right in. So we stopped in, kind of peeked through the windows, and Jeff saw the vision right away. He's like, this is what we've been looking for. And the community's been extremely supportive. So yeah, we found, and now we live in Jarvis. So we moved from Cayuga to Jarvis after about, what, a year of being here? Yep.
That's awesome. And it's like a great space too, right? Like we just went through and looked at it, and it seems like perfect for a brewery.
Yeah, we have a nice big tap room. It does fill up at times where we kind of wish we had bigger space, but it's great. It's a nice community space for people. They love coming in here, hanging out. We see a very wide range of people that come in age-wise. And so, I mean, it's, you know, 50-50 male, female, from 20 to 60. Yeah. Very, very wide range of clientele that we get, which is great. And everybody, even some of the people that you wouldn't expect are drinking beers that you totally wouldn't peg them for, right? Yeah. So that's really cool. Yeah, so this is a variation of our Cheers. Our standard, our flagship IPA. We brew this variation once a year, so we call it wet work because it's 100% wet hops. So we go to the farm the day before we brew this batch of beer. We actually harvested all the hops with Dean McConkey at McConkey Farms in St. George. And we used it, we couldn't fit another hop into this batch of beer. So it's really interesting with the wet hops because it has bitterness, but it's not bitter, and it's got a very intense stone fruit kind of flavor to it. And we used all Cascade and Cashmere. So as far as I know, he's one of the only guys within this area who's growing Cashmere. Yeah. And it's a hop that we really, really enjoy. A lot of stone fruit flavor.
You guys, you're a really good follow on Instagram, not only so you can see like what's happening in the brewery, but it seems like you like to drop knowledge about different aspects of beer. Like for example, just a couple weeks ago, you guys talked about hops and how they're used in brewing and how they're showcased in different styles of beer. Is that something that you enjoy, like educating people on subtleties within craft brewing and within brewing in general?
Absolutely. So I think that kind of comes from listening to our customers. So we do the tours in the back with everybody, and I listen to what they're saying. And a lot of people will ask us what a hop looks like, what a hop is, how it affects the beer, same with the grains, where we're getting them from. So my goal is to engage our followers, to educate them, to inspire them, to maybe, you know, try brewing themselves, or to encourage them to ask more questions, giving me more content to write about, so.
Yeah. I also noticed too, I've seen you talk about people who come in and are like, I don't really like beer, but I'm open to trying what you have. And then you help them find something that really suits them. That must be rewarding, right? To get something where people are like, they thought they didn't like beer, or thought they didn't like certain styles of beer, and then you find something that they're into.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, people would walk in and say, I don't like beer. Mm-hmm. So by asking the right questions, we were able to find out what it was that they weren't enjoying about beer. So in the beginning, a lot of people we found weren't enjoying things that were hop forward. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't serve them an IPA, I might give them the brown ale. And you can watch their facial expression at first go, oh, that's really, I'm not gonna like that. They think Guinness. Yeah. And then they drink it and they taste the chocolate, the roastiness of there isn't coffee in it, but it has almost a coffee note to it. Right. And they would taste that and think, oh, that's an excellent beer, thanks for the recommendation. So sometimes it's encouraging them to try something that they wouldn't normally pick out for themselves and expand their palates a little bit.
When I think like providing a splash where they say, well, I don't like beer. Well, here, just try a little bit. If you don't like it, that's fine. And oftentimes, yeah, you're able to kind of open their eyes that beer is not what it used to be. It's very different now. That the flavors, I think people say, a lot of times they say, I don't understand how beer can taste this way. How does a sour taste like that? Or how does, you know, and they don't realize that there's a lot more to it than just the macro style beer that's been sold to the public for a very, very long time. And I'm not gonna knock them too much. I mean, from a consistency standpoint, macro beer is the standard. They can brew a consistent batch of beer. I mean, from what I've heard, I don't know how true it is, but that in Budweiser, there's 22 different varieties of hops. They've got it down to a science that they can find the most economical hops to use to blend together to create the exact same flavor in every batch of beer.
Wow.
We can't do that. We're a very small brewery. I mean, they've got more resources tied up in a lab in a single location than we have in our entire operation.
Right.
But that's the fun of it too, is that sometimes the inconsistencies of ingredients. So I've had farmers ask me, they'll say, you know, how hard is it to brew a consistent beer? And my throwback is, well, how hard is it to grow the exact same crop?
Yeah. Same thing, right?
So when your product varies, my product varies, and oftentimes in a good way or in a way that's just slightly different, but it doesn't make it bad. It just makes the flavors a little bit different.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun to toy with people when they ask you those questions a little bit. A peach nectarine sour.
This beer is a pure labor of love.
Yeah, we were up till 2 in the morning processing about 500 pounds of peaches and nectarines. So we've subsequently used those peaches and nectarines in about 3 batches of beer. We took all the seconds from a farmer down in Niagara area that we have a relationship with, so it works out really well. It's a waste product for them, and it's something that we can use. Nobody really cares what a piece of fruit looks like in a tank. So
you guys started, you mentioned it, you started with the Firehouse Blonde and the Lumberjack Brown and Air Raid IPA, right?
Yeah.
Would you say those are like your staples that you'll always have returning?
Yes and no. The Air Raid we haven't had on for about 6 months now because we were going through the lighter styles, more dry hop variations throughout the summer, New England style IPAs. As the winters come, everybody's begging for me to get it back, and same with our stouts. So our Air Raid will be coming back throughout the winter. We have the staple beers, but they're more seasonal staples, I guess you could say. The Blonde is pretty much the only real true staple that's on 100% of the time.
Right.
We have like those couple of staples that we have through the summer, and then a couple of staples that we have through the winter. So because we have such a limited capacity and limited tap space, there's only so much we can do.
Yeah.
And we have so many ideas for what we want to do next.
Right.
So.
Yeah, with three fermenters and 1 bright tank and 6 taps, oftentimes we have more beer in the fridge than we have tap space for.
Right.
So one will sell out immediately, a new one will come on, and people like the change. That we find beers they sell really well, and then they kind of plateau and people want something new. Yeah. So then we've started kind of rotating a lot more than we did initially, and the response has been really good. So
also your pilot series, right? And we talked about this a bit beforehand, but like it must be awesome just to be able to like go and experiment and try different flavors all the time, right?
Yeah. We've got the pilot series ones we do where we brew kind of one-offs, and then we also have an even smaller. We still use our homebrew equipment, and now we've got into we do cask ales and single keg batches, where we might tap it on a Saturday and it's within hours it's gone, and it's just a chance for us to experiment. I mean, you're walking through Bulk Barn and you see something that intrigues you and you're like, hey, I wonder. Yeah. And so we've done all sorts of different batches. On the homebrew side, we did a batch recently that was 50% sweet corn in the mash, straight from a local farmer. We made like kind of a cream ale, and it was fantastic. And so we went through the logistics with him. He said, hey, do you think you'd like to brew a big batch of this? And I said, well, it would be this much corn, and like, that is a huge amount of work.
Yeah.
Well, he's got the equipment that will actually decob the corn and then flash freeze it. So he said, well, what if I decob it, flash freeze it, and then bring you the bags of corn you need to do that? And I'm like, well, yeah. And he goes, okay, when can we brew it? I said, well, we're gonna have to wait till next year's season, because it's kind of, it's tricky right now to fit it into our brew schedule. Our brew schedule is kind of already set for the next little while.
So you guys mentioned the cask ale, so I think it's a really cool addition, right? Getting back to like the educational side of things, how does that differ from like our typical ale for someone that's never heard of a cask ale before?
I think the hardest thing to teach people about cask ales is that it is a fairly low carbonated style when you're putting things into casks. The reason that I have a love for casks is, you know, I have a lot of family in the UK, and they're still, the camera and the campaign for real ale is a big thing over there. Not a lot of breweries here are doing casks, but it's getting better. Like there are, especially in the GTA area, there's like cask days, and so breweries are playing with it, and it's really nice to see that. So it's naturally conditioned, naturally carbonated, and I just like having fun with it and seeing. And to be honest, if it's a beer that maybe isn't responding well, I'll drink it. You know, I quite enjoy some of these cask ales, but the carbonation part is the real tricky part with people, that when it's a lower carbonated variety, people kind of, they're used to a certain level of carbonation in North America, and it's tough even with craft beer, because compared to macro beer, our standard beer is carbonated to a bit lesser of an extent, right? Where oftentimes the macro versions are very highly carbonated. So. So the brown ale is one that I actually probably piloted the most on my homebrew system. It's almost a porter. It's at the very top end of a brown ale, very bottom end of a porter. Reason being is I find a lot of brown ales to me are quite thin. They're more in the amber category, I would say, than a brown ale. So it's got a lot of nice roasty flavors. This beer in particular is actually kind of a pain that when we weigh out our malt bill, there's I think about 7 malts in it.
Oh wow!
So it's like when you design a recipe, oftentimes you try to design it so that you don't have part bags when it comes to some of it, so that it's nice and easy for your material calculations. This one is not so much, so it's a lot of work, but we love it.
The aromas are incredible on brown ales and darker beers. Like, I just want to live in there.
Yeah, it's one that it was gone for quite a while, and I mean when it came back. So again, we'll have this throughout the winter. Our brown, our stout. People just die for it. When's it coming back? When's it coming back?
So I find it interesting to like know what drives people, and obviously you guys love brewing beer, we talked about, but it seems like you really value the people that you brew beer for, as like shows by the events that you guys are having at the brewery all the time. Is that something that helps like shape the character of this place and what it is?
100%. So we are community driven. They're the people that keep the lights on. We wouldn't be here. We're not in the LCBO. We're in very few restaurants. This environment that we've created here is everything to us. So they're not just a customer who walks through the door. Everybody that walks through the door, whether they've been here 100 times or it's their first time coming through the door, they're valued and they know that. They're greeted the moment they walk in. We know almost everybody's names. The new people, we're still working on some of them, but we try, and we know about their kids. We know about their lives, what they're up to on the weekend. They really matter to us.
Yeah. That's really cool. I feel like it's just like a big community, right? Especially being in like a small town like Jarvis, right? It's probably feels like a big community coming in.
Absolutely, yeah.
Definitely. Well, we came from Hamilton. We both grew up in Hamilton, and I don't think we've ever been so connected to the people around us until we moved into Jarvis. Even Cayuga, we were a little bit closed off, more rural, more country, and we were so welcomed from day one of the opening. I remember it was just Jeff and I and his brother here giving us a hand. And that lineup was out the door for 9 straight hours. And, we closed the door and like energy was just through the roof. And we're like, we can't believe that happened. We had no idea we'd have that kind of support. And I'd say almost 90% of the people that came in were from the local area, and they still come in every weekend.
Yeah. Well, and a lot have become our regular customers too, and then you get some people who say come in when we opened almost, well, we're just shy of 2 years now, and they'll come in and they'll say, oh, I was here for the grand opening, but I haven't been in since. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, hey, don't be sorry. Yeah. You're here now, and you know what? It's great. And you know, they go, wow, how things have changed. Well, I mean, natural progression of the business, and reinvesting, you know, constantly reinvesting in the business, in ourselves and our customers, you know, trying to make it a more inviting space, make it more just warmer and nicer for people.
And your events that you have like weekly and monthly events, right?
Yes.
Like is there like a set schedule for them?
We do have a few that are continuous, and then we have ones we're adding on all the time. So every Thursday we host a trivia night from 7 to 9, and that's one that's become so popular. People show up 30 minutes to an hour early to reserve their table. It's really good. So I host that. Jeff runs the bar on those nights, and probably one of my favorite nights of the week. The first Friday of every month we have a comedy show, which started off really rocky and really slow. We weren't sure how people were going to receive it. And now it's another one of those nights. We pack the tap room every time. We have comedians coming from all over Ontario, Toronto, north of Toronto, Niagara. We have local ones coming from Brantford. And the quality of the comedians is incredible.
I was going to ask, is it open mic or is it like professional comedians? But
it's professional, yeah. So I guess there's like a circle of comedians. They all kind of network with each other, and there's a little bit of a buzz. Like, we got to go to Jarvis. We've got to perform there. Like, you haven't made it until you've done the Concession Road tap room, right?
One thing I wanted to ask you guys about was the Friends with Benefits Beer Club. Can you tell us about that?
It goes on sale today for 2020. It's something we rolled out pre-opening for a couple of reasons, just to garner some interest and some support, and also from like a financial standpoint, it was nice to have a bit of funds to help kind of beautify the tap room a little bit, I guess you could say. It's grown since our first version of it. So this will be the third year. The mugs were not in the first year. They became a second year item, and now they're going to be continuous. So it's an all-in-one membership. We looked at a lot of other breweries and what they were doing. They had mug clubs and growler clubs and, you know, these other clubs. So last year's membership, you got a mug, you got a triple wall insulated custom like 2019 members growler with a logo that will never be reproduced. 12 growler fills, name on the wall, 10% off for the year, big party, and a couple other perks throughout the year and stuff. And so we looked at what everybody else was doing, and we try to combine it into an all-in-one. And we understand, you know, the price is a little bit higher than each of those individual things, but those are the people that are really like your top fans. Like now that on social media you have top fans, like those are our top fans. Or
like in MySpace, my 6 best friends.
Yeah, exactly. There's my 50 best friends, right?
And it's so exclusive. There's only 50. So when we launch this tomorrow, our members will have first rights to buy those. And we think maybe only 10 will actually open up. So when those spots open, we have a lineup of people that we know want it, and will be online at noon on November 8th to purchase that new membership. Really cool. So.
Anyways, thank you guys for having us.
Oh, thank you. This has been a lot of fun.
It was good.
Great questions, too.
You guys killed it. Yeah, it was super easy.